Good evening, everyone. So it's Leanne Barrable here, the Devonshire Shepherdess. And in an attempt to get a bit more serious about what I'm talking about, I thought I would come on and do some lives on a Tuesday and a Thursday evening at around 8 o'clock, just discussing a certain topic, whichever topic I choose at the time, and I'll put a reminder post up about what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. So today I want to share with you in regards to something that I started looking at more recently and actually noticing it's what I do. But ultimately I've been working towards this idea for the last 12 years. So in terms of my daughter was born 9 years ago, so it really kind of got enforced then. But ultimately, I started looking at different ways of how to run our farming business when I did an honours degree in rural business management. And at the time of doing that degree, I had never really envisioned that I would be running a farming business, which sounds ridiculous. But at the time, I was kind of just going to college because I decided to come home farming. Dad had asked me to come home. I was about 19, and both him and mum encouraged me to go off and get a degree and learn some new skills. So since then, I kind of started learning different business ideas. We had to do a lot of stuff there where we would discuss and decide what business models we might want to use. We would do like brainstorming, like what ideas we could use. We would do all sorts of things basically around the farming businesses back then. We used to go and visit other farms and see what they were doing and how they were running, different farms and different enterprises. We visited vegetables, dairy. I don't think we did pigs, but we did, beef and sheep and all these things. And it kind of got me thinking, it really got me thinking about running our farm as a business. So being a fifth generation farmer, I was born onto this farm, and kind of like, I think what's happened, it's been a given that we should just carry on and do the same as what everybody else did for maybe the second or third or fourth generation before us. And actually what we're finding is that model doesn't serve us anymore. And it's meant that as farmers now, we're in this place of feeling really under pressure all of the time. And for many farmers, including myself, it's our health that has deteriorated, which has caused, a lot of the problems. Once you lose your health, then you kind of have lost everything. And I lost my physical health, and then my emotional and mental health went down the pan with it back 9 years ago. And I realized it was because at the time I was looking at that I had to work really hard. I had to put all the hours in, and it would be okay. It would work out. We would get money, and it never worked out that way. The harder I worked, the less kind of like good feelings I had about working on the farm. And it was always a joke that through my teenage years, I never wanted to be here. I wanted to be anywhere but here. So when I was 19 and invited back by dad to come home and farm, because my granddad had died, and it was like really sudden and stuff, so things changed. And at the time I was like, yeah, all right, just because I wanted to do something and I needed a job. And so I came home. And from that moment, it was all about me working really hard, me doing stupid hours, working in the middle of winter, lambing lots of sheep. We've got some New Zealand friends who basically said to us, I think you're stupid lambing in the middle of winter. And I'd never really thought about it because it was just what had been done. So when Haley came along and I was in this place physically, emotionally, and mentally of like completely, I lost my physical health. I couldn't do the physical farming anymore. I couldn't. And I was watching my mum and dad, who aren't old enough to retire. So this, whatever needs to happen now, it is my heart for us to work as a team together and do that, for mum and dad and Andrew and I to work as a team. um Intergenerational, which might seem absurd because many generational farming families really don't get on well with that. They are disagreeing and all these things. So I wanted to just bring up the idea of what would it look like if your farm was serving you instead of you serving it. So, I remember growing up, it was all about the farm, it was all about the animals, and that's why I hated it so much. Like, I was like, I don't want to be anywhere near this place, I don't want to be here, because I was watching my mum and dad work really hard, and it was being reinforced that there's no money in farming, there's no money in farming. So what was the point? I would then watch, my own health deteriorate because I was just in this mindset that was so wrong. It was a faulty mindset, a completely faulty mindset, because I believe that every generation going forward has the ability to make life easier. So, and that's how it's designed to be. We have technology and things now to make our lives easier. But the problem is, if our heads are saying we have to work hard, we have to work hard, and we tie our self-worth into that, that is where there's a problem. If we are tying our self-worth into how hard we work or how many hours we put in, that is a problem, and that is where our health could really start to deteriorate, because that is exactly what happened to me. My self-worth was put in how hard I could work. So how did I start looking at things differently? How did I start getting a different perspective? Well, mostly I would observe. So one of the best ways of observing in a farming family is seeing which subjects and which situations bring up the most emotions. And by emotions, I mean those really big ones that often end up in shouting, screaming. For me, I used to throw buckets. Just those kind of big emotional kind of situations. What are those situations that are happening within your farming business? What is causing your emotions to just, to be like rah, so, and all of a sudden you're shouting and screaming at each other, and see what it is that does that. So a big one, for all of us, is money. It's all about the money and the bottom line, and the figures don't add up. They really don't, for many farmers. And that is not for it isn't our fault, really. For a lot of it, the production costs and everything have got to this place now where the cost of production is higher than what we're getting paid. And so for me, I'm like, well, how can we make it that we're making our own money? And we had this discussion this evening around the table. What is it that we could be doing on our farm to create our own economy and create our own kind of sources of income, not being reliant on government payments, not being reliant on, pharmaceutical products and things like that, because we're in such a kind of cycle of um needing more and more costs. What are those things? So observations are a key thing that I have made, and I, whenever I observe something that I want to change, I then ask the question, is okay, how am I going to change this? And then once I start asking that question and start thinking about it, it's like tonight I started thinking about when it was that farmers stopped being able to make it work anymore financially. When was it? And I asked my dad, I asked my mom, and they both said it was around the time of BSE in 1996, where farming took this massive hit. And of course we were blamed for it. We were blamed for that whole situation, and it changed everything. And all of a sudden we went from the unsung heroes saving the country from starvation to, oh my gosh, this horrible disease, BSE, CJD, is coming into the human population, and farmers have caused it. So we literally went from this one place of, you know, really helping people, making sure that people weren't starving in the UK and everything, to you've caused this problem. And now I feel that we're still in that place. We're still the scapegoats. But for me, I'm like, well, actually, I know what I'm doing is okay. I'm happy with how we farm. I'm comfortable to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me about food, whether it's vegetables or meat or whatever they want to talk to me about. I'm quite happy to talk to people about that and not get angry about it, because at the end of the day, it's a lack of education that is the problem. And then for me, I believe that we should be the ones educating, but that's a different kind of thing. Then it comes to, how do we make the changes? Well, we have to make small steps towards the change. You can't make overnight changes like boom, you know. So fertilizer is one that I find easiest to talk about. I started saying to my dad 10 years ago, Dad, we need to stop using fertilizer. We need to reduce the amount of fertilizer we're using, and you know, everything. That was 10 years ago. This year was our first year of not using any fertilizer. So we've got 210 acres and we haven't used any fertilizer this year. And by fertilizer, I mean artificial white bagged fertilizer. We've obviously used a lot of dung because that is our key fertilizer. So we made those changes, but it's been over 10 years. So it's kind of like, and some things you can make big changes overnight and you'd be like, right, we're doing it this way. And other things you can't. Health is key in my mind. The health of our animals is key. The health of our sheep flock has been the kind of bane of my life for a long time. Different things, and actually, instead of trying to put out the fires and just throw medicines at it, which is what I thought was the right way, I'm like, well, how can we support our sheep? How can we help them with their health? How can we do this, that, and the other? And then I've been out and learned different ways of you know, helping the sheep. Then in return, what I get now is that because I'm spending the time finding new ways of feeding the animals, you know, which is ultimately what we're doing, growing different plants and renewing the soil and those things, is actually then meaning I have more time for the things that are important to me. So my family is important to me. My daughter is important to me. So I get to spend more time on her because I'm not forever fighting the fires on the farm. You know, the animals are happy for 98% of the time, and then there's only 2%, whereas it used to be like 50% of the time you were fighting this kind of like health war constantly, and it would take up so much valuable time. And we have so much more time now to put to the things that I want to do, spending time with family and having people over for dinner and all those things, because I'm making this farm serve me rather than me serve the farm. This is where it's all coming from. This is the whole kind of thing. And then what happens when you are working with other generations? I have to collect a lot of evidence. And I start collecting evidence by observation again. So if I start seeing things grow, we're seeing a lot more mushrooms this year. So that to me is a sign that, all right, some would say it's just a mushroom a year. But for me, that's our bacteria and our fungi are actually starting to work within our soil again. And that is a good thing. I start looking for grass growth. You know, I have this vision and dream that one day the whole farm, there will literally be so many plants growing everywhere that they'll be up over our knees everywhere, you know, not just in certain fields. And that has been, you know, really it's a real driving force to me. And this summer it happened. In this summer we had one field that was over my knee, even though we had a drought. And that was my evidence. I was like, look, Dad, here's the evidence. And so it kind of like it comes part and parcel. So you have to make the original observations of, what is it, what do you want to change, what you're sick of. You know, I was sick of doing sheep's feet. I was sick of getting to lambing, and there'll be issues with calcium deficiency, and you know, those kind of things. So I would make the observations. What causes the most arguments on farms? Normally money. Okay, so what is it then that you could be doing different? How can you, you know, you've got to start thinking outside of the box. And I think outside of a very big box sometimes, and it doesn't always come to pass. That's the thing. But having the ideas is where it starts. Making the changes, having the confidence to make the changes. We treat this place as one big science experiment. So that is kind of our motto. And then collecting the evidence to back up what it is that you have implemented and say, oh, look, there, it's happening. It's happening there. Oh my gosh, we've only got one sheep lame in our whole sheep flock. And, so that's the evidence I collect up to share with the generation above me. Actually, this is working. And equally on the other foot, if it doesn't work, I'll quite happily put my hand up and go, well, that didn't work, did it? So we'll try something different. So it's having that ability to change. So this is I hope this has been useful for you this evening. If you would like to go deeper and learn about how it is that I am able to do these things and I'm confident in myself, then please get in touch. I would love to work with women who are in farming who really would like to start changing their farming business to kind of suit them rather than the other way around, like the farming business kind of destroying them from the inside out. And yeah, so there will be a link below this video, or above or below, whichever way, that you can click on to have a one-to-one conversation with me. That's just 15 minutes one-to-one conversation, just so we can chat a bit more about what it is that you want for your farm, what is your vision, and what it is that's stopping that vision happening. And yeah, so there is also a group that I set up called Farming from the Heart, and that is again for women in farming, and there is a link for that. So if you want to join in there, you can do. And yeah, I'm hoping to get into some kind of coaching ideas soon in there. So thank you all for listening, and I will speak to you again on Thursday night at 8.